Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 68. Tonight we'll be talking about the Man United game, analysing the performance and the players, a special section for VAR and officiating, taking your questions and looking ahead to Brighton. Delighted to have back club captain Noki, our director of football Chris Tyler, and all the way back over from China, former Chelsea and Fulham FIFA registered coach Mr. Mark Cole. Straight into it, busy night. Noki, your initial take on Manchester United 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
Taking purely the football into it, I thought we were absolutely sensational. I was really pleased. We were organised, just so solid. They look like they played with the freedom that they haven't had for a couple of years now, really. And I think that performance, even though we lost the game, was probably as well as we've played away from home for 2 years. Even, counting the wins that we had last season, the two that we had on the road, I thought we were better yesterday. We were fast, we were creative. I thought Nunez and Cunha in particular were really hurting them through midfield. They couldn't get to grips with them. We were overlapping on the flanks. Everyone seemed to know their job, and we just caused lots of problems for them in attacking areas. And on another day, I think Wolves are a couple of goals up by half time and maybe could have scored 4 on the day. I don't think we'd have been generous if we'd have hit 3 or 4. So really, really pleased with what we did. It should have given us a lot of hope for the future. Obviously, it's only one game. You've got to take it as it is. It's a long season, but if you take that one as an individual, I thought we were absolutely superb. So really pleased with that. Lots of positives, but again, we can't put the ball in the back of the net, and that's an issue that's followed us around for a couple of seasons now. And as well as you play, if you don't score goals, especially against a team like Manchester United, they're going to get an opportunity, and I think they scored with their first shot on target. So the same issues are there, but I do feel like we created a lot more chances than we have done, over previous games. So you can see what we were trying to do, which was nice. We had a little bit of an identity, but obviously disappointing, especially with the chances that we had. I mean, it wasn't, there weren't half chances. We had the Cunha strike that hit the post. We had Hwang's that flashed just wide. There were big chances that we fashioned, and we've got to start putting them away.
Tyler, we couldn't have imagined that we were having a conversation when we're disappointed not to have won at Old Trafford.
No, in reality, no. I always thought we'd put on a performance, and I think, as we've all talked about, we've got some very good footballers still, and I think the outside media noise and everybody writing Wolves off as relegation fodder and in for a long season, they don't know the inside story, do they? The only real player that we've lost that we were a bit gutted about is Neves, some with Adama as well. But we talked about when Neves didn't play in those 2 or 3 games last season, how mobile Wolves were, how energetic we were, how dominant we were in midfield. And I expected that again yesterday. That midfield 3 is outstanding. I think Noka touched upon it. Without getting ahead of myself, they just complement each other so well. And I think they're as good as anything probably outside, the big 6. But Knocker's hit the nail on the head, and I tweeted it after the game and got a bit of stick. But if you don't score goals, it's the name of the game, and we just can't do it, can we? And we're going to get punished. And they're not half chances. They're good chances, like Knocker said. Neto has to score. If he goes to the side, I used the word composure to you earlier, didn't I? We just seem to lack that bit of composure in that final third. And I just hope it's not going to be our undoing this season, because like Knocker said, everything else was outstanding.
Mark, I mean, I know you've been going through your stats and your XG. I don't recall a game where Wolves have created this much away from home in a long time, League or Cup. It was just a sensational performance, as Tyler said, without the goal. But if Wolves continue to create chances like that with the footballers they have, the goals will come surely.
Absolutely. I mean, I know people mention XG a lot, but it's a thing, It's a quality of the chances created. I think under JLo, when I was reading the last couple of days, our average XG was around 1, sometimes well below that. And, no chances. Some games we weren't, getting any shots off at all. But yesterday was well over 2. I think apart from halfway through the first half, when Man United had a bit of a spell, we had higher XG than them the whole game, And if we keep that XG high, I know we didn't finish it yesterday. They will come. The quality chances are good. There's enough of them. Some of them are going to go in. I'm absolutely certain of it. So I'm not really concerned. As the boys have just said, it's been a real tumultuous build-up. There's a lot of negativity around the club. I think most of us probably expected to lose yesterday, but the manner in which we've done so has been a surprise to me. I wasn't sure what to expect from Gary O'Neill. I was kind of cautiously optimistic, but lots of energy, lots of pace. Like the boys have just said there, the midfield with Neves going, Lamina and Gomez in there. I mean, they were unstoppable, weren't they? They got to everything. Once, twice, three times, and usually you can be forgiven for thinking with a pair like that might just sit in a double pivot low block and just try and soak up, but he didn't. You had it kind of reshuffled in a bit of a diamond formation where you had Gomez a little bit higher and Lamina sat behind him doing all the work. So he had a little diamond, and it worked really, really well yesterday.
Nocky, it's an incredible transformation to a really miserable end to the season. What do you think the main difference was yesterday?
It felt like they played with the freedom. It felt like they weren't handcuffed. The handbrakes felt like they were off a little bit, and people have freedom to really drive. And we know Núñez has got that ability. He's close control. I don't think there's anyone better in the league in terms of close control. And I don't know. We just looked like we wanted to be there. We looked like we wanted to play. It was just really energetic. It was exciting to watch. It was a game that I've watched and I've enjoyed it. I mean, we were at Southampton last season, and for the majority of that game, we were absolutely wretched, but we managed to win it. Same with Everton, we were really poor in that game. With this game, we just felt like we had a clear strategy and a clear plan. And as good as we were, I don't think it's going to sound like a negative, but it's not. Not every player was good for the whole game either. I thought there were spells where Núñez disappeared. I thought there were spells where we kind of lost our way a little bit, but then we kind of regathered, recouped, and went again. And it was just a really organised performance. And you've got to give Gary O'Neill credit. He's come into this and he's had a lot of stick just because he's Gary O'Neill. He's English. He's a manager who got sacked from Bournemouth. If he was a foreigner who's coming in, he wouldn't be getting half of the abuse that he's got. But he's dealt with that really well. His substitutions were absolutely bang on. He affected the game with every decision he made. And on another day, Wolves get away with, a win, comfortably get, 3 points out of that match, at least a point, which, I would have been a little bit upset if we'd have only got that. So it's not his fault we haven't put the ball in the back of the net. He's been with the club 3 or 4 days. So he set us up right. He was organised. He was brave with his selection. I think me and Chris had the conversation before the game that I probably wouldn't have picked that front line. I wouldn't have put Sarabia in, but he did. And we looked really dangerous the whole game. So you've got to give him massive credit for that. But I think under Lopetegui, I don't think he was a man the players really took to. He didn't feel like he was very approachable. I know the word prickly was used, whereas O'Neill just seems to be someone who really wants to be here. And that kind of attitude is going to resonate. It's going to get into the players' heads, and you're going to start seeing it with performances on the pitch. And I do think we got maybe a little taste of what could be to come.
What did strike me on that, and I'll take this into Tyler, what did strike me is there was a real lack of social media presence from the players, wishing their old boss good luck. I suppose if you're putting down the squad in the summer, these aren't good enough, it is gonna make them prickly as well as if he's been prickly as well, Tyler. But there's a lot of players there yesterday. I mean, whether it was a one-off, only time will tell. But there felt like a load of players that gave absolutely everything to playing to prove a point, but also playing with belief. Yeah,
I think you've nailed it. I think Nocky used the word freedom, and I'd agree with that. The work ethic was excellent. You genuinely can't fault the performance. You can't pick anything apart from the lack of a goal. And I know it's all hindsight, but I think if we go 1-0 up, we'd probably go 2-0 up, because United would have come at us and we were just a better side. We were more comfortable. We were picking them off. We were attacking. We looked dangerous. Or maybe a weight has been lifted. We don't know. We're not close enough to know, are we? But Gary's got a point to prove, like Knocker said, and he wants to be here. And I think by the end, a lot of Wolves fans had probably had enough of, JLo's whinging. There's only so much you can sort of repeat the same message. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff he was saying about the players was to say, I need more. But you're right, Ryan, it's not going to wash, is it? The seasoned players that we've got. And freedom's the word I'd use as well. But I've not seen, I can't remember us being that good. I'm trying to think when it was. It was under the Nuno days when we were, ripping teams apart and giving the big six a game. That's how good it was. And like me and Knocker said as we were watching it, if you'd never watched football before and you were saying which team's the one that's got a new manager and who's the established team looking to potentially push for the league, you'd reverse the teams, wouldn't you? So that's the biggest compliment I could give, really. And I think they summed it up when they took Rashford off with 10 minutes to go from McTominay. That tells you as the away manager, you've got the better of them. It's just unfortunate we couldn't score.
Yeah, very unlucky. Obviously, Gary O'Neill's been there a few days, Mark. He's come under a lot of stick, maybe unfairly dismissed at Bournemouth. But having previously worked in football yourself, what are your early impressions? Because for me, the way he talks about football and how articulate he is really, really promising.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his interviews, and I think you can always tell the kind of caliber of a man by the testimonials from the people he's worked with. You know, I mean, he was coaching at Liverpool, you know, the under-23s. He was picked up. He's kind of been headhunted everywhere he's gone. I think with Bournemouth's case, it was a case of, you know, Scott Parker came out and, you know, I mean, he's a bit belligerent like J-Lo was, you know, openly criticising the owners, and it cost him his job there. And so Gary O'Neill found himself in the hot seat earlier than perhaps he would have, you know, envisaged. And, you know, he had his ups and downs, but with a limited squad, he achieved his mission, didn't he? And in the end, they looked pretty good towards the end, the final 5 games or so. And I think for him, it sounds like, you know, again, it really parallels to us that Bournemouth's owners had their eye on that new manager for some time. And when he became available, they took the decision and took him. It was unfortunate for Gary. But, you know, what's their loss could ultimately end up being our gain. You know, his attention to detail is very, very good. I think after having a manager like J-Lo, who rubbed up the players and publicly criticising him, I mean, we've watched a few pre-season games together and stuff, you know, and it was interesting. After that Celtic game, Matt Doherty came out and said, oh, it's quite obvious there's things aren't right behind the scenes. And, you know, people asking questions, like, what does he mean there? And then lo and behold, after that game, it's when J-Lo, you know, said he wanted out. And then after that, our performances in pre-season looked a lot better, didn't they? People started playing with a bit of freedom because they knew he was going. I mean, I may be getting the dots wrong here, but I'm just saying what I saw, you know. So I think he's going to come in. He's going to put an arm around the players. You know, some of those players need a little bit of love after being with J-Lo, and I think, you know, like you guys said, they are playing with freedom now. He's come in. He's told the boys that he's watched them. He knows all about it. He knows how good they are, and he wants them to give them the freedom to play and show off their potential.
Absolutely. I've seen people in the comments, they're talking about the Stade Rennais game and taking that performance into Man United. Obviously, Stade Rennais and Man United are two very different football clubs. But you wouldn't believe that the way the Wolves approached that game, Nocky, with probably very little respect for Manchester United, who they were, Casemiro, Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, like world names that famous in football, that didn't really get a look in against a very, very good Wolves midfield.
Yeah, and that's the key. And just before I talk about that, I just want to touch on what the lads have said in terms of Lopetegui. I think the key for me was João Moutinho, because that's a player who the fans were absolutely in love with. He loved us. He did a little wave every time he came to the corner. Never said a word when he left. So that's not a reflection on the supporters. That's a reflection on the way he was being managed at the time. But in terms of performances, I think the Stade Rennais game, I really enjoyed that. In terms of it being a friendly, yes, it was a friendly, but winning's a habit. It doesn't matter whether you're playing a friendly, whether you're playing a cup final, it's irrelevant. A win's a win. And we were absolutely brilliant that day. And I'd argue we were very, very similar to the Manchester United performance. We just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And they probably caused us more problems than United, in all honesty, because they had some really fast players. The midfield, we completely dominated. I think João Gomez and Lamina just sat there. He just mopped up. He won everything that came at him. He's such a good player. I don't think people realise just how good he is. And João Gomez is, for me, he's the replacement for Neves. I thought it would be Núñez, but I think it's João Gomez because he's got that control element to him. He's young and he's developing. He's getting better and better. And I think he'll score goals. I think he'll break up attacks. I think he'll find the range of passing as well. And then when you've got Cunha dropping deep the way he did, playing as almost an extra midfielder, he was picking that ball up and he was just driving. And how many times did he run straight through the middle of that Manchester United midfield? And it was just such a brave performance. And I always think when you're going up against a team like this, whether it's a Man U, Man City, Arsenal, whoever it is, you kind of lose the game in your head before you even kick off because you're expecting them to be better than you. You give them a little bit too much respect and they'll control possession, they'll control the ball, and you just sit back. Whereas they're a little bit weaker at the back than they are going forward. And the way that we attacked them, put them under pressure and frightened the life out of them, that was a really, really brave performance. I don't think any other team will go to Old Trafford and create the amount of chances we did. Teams will go there and win because they can put the ball in the back of the net. But in terms of creating opportunities, I don't think anyone else will do to them what we have.
Tyler, a lot of people have said today in the press, they've criticised Man United's performance, but I put a tweet out earlier on and I would argue that Wolves didn't let Manchester United play. Yes, Man United off the boil, and with that talent and that money you'd spent, you'd expect better football against a team like Wolves. However, I've got to credit Wolves more than I'm going to criticise Man United because I don't think they give him a kick. Rashford, what did he do? Sancho, when he came on, Bruno Fernandes, one of the most creative midfielders in the Premier League last season, nothing.
Yeah, Mark was right. I mean, we were so snappy in the tackles, weren't we? And it wasn't just the first one; it was the second and the third one. And they didn't just press randomly; they pressed together,
measured.
They pressed as a unit, they pressed as a pack. They knew when to go, they knew when not to. Can you work on that in 3 or 4 days? Maybe you can, because he got it absolutely spot on. And it's not luck, it is judgment, isn't it? And he obviously knows what to do. He's been there with Bournemouth. He's had a season with that team, and he said he had a plan for United from when he went there. He obviously watched a lot of Wolves, like Mark had said, and like Mark said, he's very analytical, and in the game, he's very highly respected. So he'll know exactly the makeup of the Wolves squad. And I just like the fact we've said on this podcast 100 times, haven't we? We just want to be entertained. We just want to watch a brand of football that we can buy into. And it's early days. It's one game. Did he go there and treat it as a bit of a free hit? Who knows? Is there more pressure now on Saturday because expectations have gone up potentially, and he's going to have to deal with that, isn't he? But I was bought into my football team again, and that's probably the biggest compliment I can give him, really.
Mark, as Tyler and Nokia both said, and I'm totally in agreement, and sure you'll be as well, Wolves were fun to watch again. They were fun to watch against Stade Rennais. They were fun to watch against Manchester United. As I think Nokia said earlier on, I think it might be Nokia, the handbrake looked off. There's players allowed to run with the ball. They're being brave. They're pushing past the man in their own half. They're taking risks, and they almost got the rewards for taking the risks.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying to Dad, because we watched the game together last night, I said to him, I don't actually remember the last time I enjoyed watching Wolves. It's been turgid. It's been the slow build-up, tippy-tappy, sideways, backwards, passive possession. And, by the time you're in the final third, we run out of ideas and it's back to where it was, And one of the things Gary O'Neill kind of said was, I'm going to be more direct, and he was more direct at Bournemouth, albeit on a limited squad. So it was absolutely wonderful to see that. I really, really enjoyed it. And like Noki was saying about Nunez and Cunha, as soon as we lost possession, you'd see Cunha bombing back, using his pace to get back, drop into midfield. And then when they received the ball, I noticed, I said to Dad, it looks like to me they've been specifically instructed. Gary O'Neill's gone into Nunez and Cunha saying, listen, you guys are quick, you're skillful. It's high risk, but high reward. I want you to receive the ball on the turn, and I want you to get past your man and just beat the man, beat your first man on the turn, beat the second man, and all of a sudden the pitch has opened up and we've got a 4v3, and it's sausage time. It's absolutely wonderful. It's really, really good to watch. And I think the key to being a good manager is unlocking the potential of your best players. And we've watched Nunez for a season. We've seen flashes of what he can do. The goal at Chelsea was wonderful, but in performance, we're kind of underwhelmed. And Cunha, we could see there's a really good, talented footballer in there, but where do we play him? And Gary O'Neill kind of kept him in the same position, but just utilising him smarter. So yeah, I think the evidence is there. After a short period of time working with the players, you can see the Gary O'Neill effect for sure.
I'm not sure which one of Tyler and Lockie said it, so jump in whoever said this to me yesterday. It was a great performance from Wolves, but there was lots of little mistakes. So imagine when they're ironed out and the relationships are built with a new formation, how much better this could be. I'm not sure, was it you, Tyler, that said that, or was it you, Nocky? One of you said it to me afterwards.
It was me. And I think there's still more to come from the midfield. They were excellent, but we've seen them be better than that individually. And I'd argue that 90% of Man United's chances came from Wolves' errors. they never. I can't remember apart from the goal, and I know it wasn't great defending, but I can't remember them putting a nice slick move together, thinking, you know, that's good football. Everything they got into the good positions was down to
Wolves
our
era.
whether that was Kilman missing it or, you know, sloppy passing. And if you can iron those out, and it's a big if, then who knows where we go.
Yeah, that tweak to the formation. That diamond wasn't quite the same as Stade Rennais. It almost had more intensity through the middle. I want to go through the team now and talk about the performances. Nocky, Jose Sarr, maybe a little bit out of position for the goal, but didn't really have a lot to do.
No, he didn't have a lot to do, and I think up to the goal he did it all relatively well. Did try and take on a Man United defender inside the penalty area, which he kind of gives me kittens.
You don't need that, do you? After 10 minutes.
No, but I think with the goal, the ball chipped over the top, and he's just taken a step forward, and I think that's completely took him out of position. If he stays on his line, he's got an opportunity. But you know, it's a well worked goal from their point of view. I may be being a little bit harsh, but I just think his positional sense caught him out and gave them a very simple option. But he's not had much to do, and it's not something you expect to say about your goalkeeper at Old Trafford. Everything he did, he did well. But yeah, my only kind of little criticism was his positional sense for the goal was just a little bit away from where he should have been, in my opinion.
Tyler, on to Nelson Semedo, who I thought was probably Wolves' unsung hero yesterday.
Can't remember him playing better for Wolves, to be honest. I've been his biggest critic. I think we saw last night.
That first half, he was sensational.
How good he can be. And he lets himself down because he's got a rick or he doesn't seem to be fully attentive all the time. But he set the standard now. And Doherty Cummings a kick up the arse for him, isn't it? Because he'll be out the team if he doesn't perform. He's got genuine competition now for probably the first time in a couple of years. So you're right, he was the unsung hero. He was some people's man of the matches, and I can see why. I thought he was outstanding, up and down the line, kept them quiet. You know, Anthony and Garnacho were their wonder kids, apparently. Neither of them got a kick out of him.
No.
Yeah, he was
ultimately, I think.
You don't say this very often about Nelson Semedo, but he looked like a £35 million right back he bought from Barcelona yesterday. Anyone that went past him, he pocketed them. He was comfortable on the ball. He was overlapping. I genuinely thought Nelson Semedo, the 2 year was done. So Wolves would cash in and take 10 million or something for him for money. But if that's the Nelson Semedo we've got, now he's like maturing a bit with a bit of competition. I'm absolutely all for it.
Competition's the key for me. I don't think he's had anyone really pushing him for almost his entire Wolves career. We sent Doc out when he came in. So I think having someone nipping at your heels like that, it's only going to make you more focused. And he's exactly what he needed.
Mark, moving on to another unsung hero that was pretty much faultless throughout the night. Craig Dawson, probably one of the best £3.5 million Wolves have ever spent.
I mean, you know exactly what you're getting with him. He's missed a 7 out of 10 every game, isn't he? He's like a bigger, stronger Kevin Foley. You know, he's just he does what he needs to do every game. He doesn't really get caught out. I mean, the only real mistake I've seen from Craig Dawson was the soft penalty against Rennes. But he's blocking,
and even that was very questionable.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a dive to me, but you know what you're getting. He's good in distribution. He's even taken a little touch of the Max Kilman's, you know, where he feigns inside and takes that first touch outside to give himself an extra couple of seconds to think, try and get that pass off down the channel to Nelson Semedo. So it looked like his distribution was a bit braver yesterday. Again, solid performance.
Yeah, I love Craig Dawson. I'm not sure how long we'll have him for, but for a player that was never been particularly quick, hopefully it's for a couple of seasons because he's composed, he's steady on the ball, he's really near the game, and he wins most of his headers. So yeah, great game from Craig Dawson, and I think hardly troubled as well. I think it's fair to say yesterday. I don't really recall anyone causing him any bother.
The only person that caused him problems was Andrea Onana when he tried to decapitate him. But
in two in one go. Nocky, Maximilian Kilman. Now, I don't know if my eyes were deceiving me, but I'm pretty sure he got into a foot race with Marcus Rashford, caught up with him, shrugged him, and off he went. Now, I don't know if my eyes were deceiving me then, but it was a solid game from Max Kilman. Yeah,
he's very much in the Lamina mould for me that we don't realise how good he is. He's the reading of the game, the way that he anticipates where the ball's going to be, and he's he knows what's around him as well. He knows where the striker's running. He knows what the risks are. He's a very, very composed player. And how many times you see him just get back and just get that foot in? And that's not an accident. That's because he's an intelligent defender who stays calm and reads the game. And again, similar to Dawson, I thought he was faultless. I think he's a better defender when he's got a Dawson next to him. I think when he had a Collins there, he just wasn't quite as comfortable. When he gets a Dawson, he's got that little, almost a crutch where he just feels a little bit more comfortable. But giving him the armband, I think, was the right thing to do. We spoke earlier in the season, would you lose Kilman if it meant you got two players in? And for me, absolutely not. I think he's key for what we're going to do going forward.
Yeah, a very solid night for Max Kilman. One of many performers that probably didn't deserve to be on the losing side, but that partnership looks very, very good, and hopefully they can stay fit all season. Tyler, moving on to the guys that you've been calling the best left back at Wolves for quite a while, Ryan Aït-Nouri, another good performer.
Yeah, I think he was good. I don't think he hit the levels that the three we've just mentioned. Not a shaky first half, but he sort of was trying to get himself into the game. But when he settled down,
that run was lovely.
Yeah, first half was delightful, and that's just what you want, isn't it? You just want that. Like Bully said, you want to give your best players the freedom to do what they do best, and that's what he does best. He was probably a bit restricted. He got no game time under J-Lo, but anyone who said he's not our best left back, for me, don't quite get what you're saying. And I think he was probably 7 out of 10. I think there's still more to come from him. You know, when he gets in those good positions, has he got the composure, the delivery, the final ball? And we've seen enough time where his step overs don't quite work and we can be in trouble. So I think there's still so much more to come from him. I think we forget how young he is. But he's first choice left back all day long for me.
I think as the season goes on, we'll see more from Aït-Nouri if he's still a Wolves player. And the reason I think that is because if you've got João Gomez and Mario Lemina, who will happily tuck in and let him get forward, you could see that at times yesterday, that break when he broke into centre midfield and then almost was turned up in the number 10 position. And I think that's something that's going to develop. And in terms of natural talent, there aren't many more gifted left-backs around than Ryan Aït-Nouri.
Alan Cresswell.
Well, yeah, we might be finding out soon. I mean, dead ball's as good as it gets, but I think I want to keep Ryan Aït-Nouri, but we shall see. Mark, moving on to Pedro Neto. I've been quite critical of Pedro Neto throughout the pre-season. He has had a couple of bad injuries. He hasn't really seemed to find the levels, but there was that little Cruyff he did in the second half, and then he just left Lindelof for dead. So there's flashes of the old Pedro Neto last night.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when that guy's up and running, he's like one of those. I'm not quite to the level of Adama Traore, but he's another one. He's one of the players that just gets you out your seat because he's got that in his locker. You know, like when the first game of last season, do you remember the Leeds
pirouette?
He did that little lollipop and left 2 for dead. And thinking, great, we've got our Pedro back, and then he went quiet for the rest of the season. You know, so again, yesterday, really good game. He did everything. He got really good energy. He looks fit. He looks stronger than he's ever been. You know, his upper body strength. He's bulked up a little bit. He just needs that end product. You know, because before he had that, you know, you'd back him to score that goal against Chelsea like last few seasons ago. You know, where he just left them for dead and just that arrow-like precision into the corner. And he had that chance to kind of put us ahead, didn't he? And he hit it straight at Onana. So I think very, very good player in there, and I hope. He needs to do that consistently, and he needs to be getting in those good positions. I thought his crossing was good. I thought his deliveries were good. He put that ball in for the GBH assault.
Decapitation.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, I think he's really good yesterday. I really did. He's just missing that finish.
Interesting for me that he spent quite a bit of the game on the right-hand side, where previously I think he hasn't looked as strong there. But he looked quite comfortable there last night. But I want him to take some belief from Matheus Nunes and Cunha and believe in that pace he's got, because I don't think he's quite got that belief when he's alongside someone that he's going to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that will come with games. He just needs a bit of a run in the side. And like I said, he needs to be producing it game after game. But yesterday, there was absolutely no issue with his pace. I mean, he did it a couple of times when he broke down that right-hand side. And you can see he was trying to link up with Sarabia on the inside, just get that little 1-2 and just, maybe try and get that shot off. But
Yeah, very impressive, Pedro Neto, and hope he's setting his standards for the season going forward. Nocky, onto one of your reducers. You've got to give you one of these two boys, João Gomez. Sometimes not always 100% with his distribution. There's a few slips, but you're playing at that pace. There's going to be mistakes. But his ball recovery and dominance of the physical presence in midfield was nothing short of outstanding.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I don't think he was consistently good through the game. I think he had moments where he maybe disappeared, give the ball away a few times, but his ball recovery, his basics, the bread and butter that he's there for, that is absolutely second to none. He got himself up the pitch as well. He created an opportunity for Silva when he tackled him inside the area. So he just looks a very, very good player to me. He looks like he's got just that little touch of class. You can tell he's Brazilian. He just has that flair to him, and the price we've got him for and the age that he is, I can only see him getting better. But it was a good performance yesterday, but I think there's a lot more to come.
Slightly out of position if we're playing a diamond as well, because I'd be expecting João Gomez to be the one that's holding all the time, not be more far advanced. But
I think he offers you something going forward, though. I think that we saw that against Southampton with the finish, and we saw it with the ratting around inside the area. So I don't think you're going to limit him to being a holding midfielder. I think he could potentially.
He's got the engine to be everywhere, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's got that. He has got that mobility about him. He's got the intelligence, and he did it in a friendly where he chipped one over the top for Hwang as well. So he's got that vision where he can find a pass. So I wouldn't be limiting him to a position. I think almost a box-to-box free roll in midfield. I think that'll really suit him.
The one thing I really enjoy about his game is the way he disheartens the opponents. I think he took the ball off Rashford and he span, and Rashford just stopped. Sancho had been on 5 minutes, popped him out of the way. Sancho stopped, and he done. The way he's doing that to players world famous players, it bodes so well for the future.
He'd just be a pain, isn't he? He'd be a pain to play against because he wouldn't give you any time on the ball. And a lot of the times last season when Wolves were getting beat, it's because we were surrendering time and possession in midfield. We were letting teams play through us and pick those passes. He doesn't let you do that because he just smothers you. And we've been looking for a player like that for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of his partners in crime, Tyler, Mario Lemina, what a performance. I mean, he sums himself up, and I think he underplays himself a bit. He says, I'll win the ball and I'll pass the ball. But wow, does he win the ball?
Yeah, he knows his limitations and he does it well. I'm not going to change my opinion on him. That I still think he's limited with the football. And I think the game like last night is perfectly suited for him. He loves it. He loves a battle. He loves like Mark would say, a reducer. He loved that foul where he got booked. He knew exactly what he was doing. Those games for him are what he plays football for. I'm going to say it again, and like I've said before, it's more the games like we've got coming up on Saturday, I think, where the impetus is on us, and I think he just lacks a little bit with the ball, but he's in my level all day long, and he always never lets you down. And I think as long as we can, like Mark said, you can free Gomez and you can free Núñez, that does enable him to play that role. And if he's okay winning it and passing it 5-10 yards to one of those two, that'll work for me. Do you know what I mean? So that game last night was made for him. And yeah, he was up there for man of the match, wasn't he? You couldn't really knock his display at all. With
the way he sort of gave Bruno Fernandes and anyone else around the area nothing. It reminded me what he did to Harry Kane. What he did to Harry Kane at Molineux last season. He man-marked Harry Kane, and he was just like, "You've just marked the England captain, and he's done nothing. You've absolutely bullied him." Yeah,
you're right. I don't remember seeing Bruno Fernandes that quiet in a football game.
Dominated.
So that tells you again how well he's played.
Yeah, fantastic performance. Mark, moving on to Matheus Núñez. For me, other than the goal against Chelsea, I'm probably going to say that's his best performance in a Wolves shirt.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, that's, when we saw his highlights reel for Sporting Lisbon before, that's the kind of areas you want him picking up the ball right deep in the centre there, turning and just travelling. He's got the legs, he's got the ability. I just looked at his stats earlier: 83 touches, 6 dribbles, 5 interceptions, and 16 duels won. I mean, he was everywhere. His touch map was literally
sexy warrior.
Yeah, it was no uncharted territory on the pitch. He was everywhere, And the thing is with him as well, like, he's going to give the ball away sometimes because of the nature of what he's been asked to do, and that's receive, turn, and travel with it. I was saying to Dad yesterday, if he tries that 10 times and 6-7 times he's really successful, gets us up the pitch into good positions, I'm okay with him, giving it away the other couple of times. We've got our producers there to kind of mop that up. yeah, absolutely awesome. If that's what's to come from him this season, then that £45 million is looking better value.
We've been saying on here for quite a while that we prefer him picking up the ball deeper, and I think it's glaringly obvious. If he comes and collects from deep, and then he gives him 5 or 10 yards to open them legs up, nobody's catching him. I know I've mentioned this a few times, but he registered the high speed for a centre midfielder in the Premier League. So once his engine's going, you're not stopping him.
Yeah.
I think this one's appropriate for you, Tyler. Pablo Sarabia, not a bad performance, but probably Wolves' most quiet player yesterday.
Whatever I say, Knocker's going to take the piss. Also, she's take the mick, isn't it? So I'm not going to even bother on this one. As you know, my thoughts in good football. I don't know if last night, like I've said on the mean, and I'll say the same. I don't know if last night's game is quite right for him.
No,
I'd have started a Fabio or Hwang, and my thoughts on Hwang, so that's how bad it must be. But United were terrified of the pace and the energy and the runners that we had, and he was probably the one player that we had in the team yesterday that couldn't quite do that role. However, that's not to say he wasn't effective. He won some good free kicks. His touch is immaculate. His brain's immaculate. I think there's a lot to come from him, but I just don't think that game necessarily suited him yesterday. And I don't think it quite passed him by. He wasn't like...
No, he wasn't. I don't think he was poor. I just think there were so many good players. He was in a lot of shadows.
Yeah, and when Hwang did come on and sort of go that side, he gave Wan-Bissaka a lot of problems, and you don't normally see Wan-Bissaka that troubled. He was worried about him, and maybe that substitution could have happened a bit earlier. That's the only thing I'd say. But I like him, and I think a game like Saturday, where you're home to Brighton, and you may have a little bit more of the ball, and you might have a little pocket of space. Maybe that's more where he can add value. But yeah, still did a good job.
Yeah, not a bad performance, but acquieted by his own ability. Nocky, one of the players of the match, been getting praise across social media, getting praise from the fans. Probably his best performance in a Wolves shirt. I've never understood if Matheus Cunha was quick or not. I think we found out last night he was definitely quick. He played games last season, and I thought you were going to be quicker than that. Whatever he's been doing pre-season, that guy's got some legs on him.
Well, I think when we talk about freedom, as we mentioned earlier, that was your absolute case in point there, because he played like he was playing in the playground at school. He just picked the ball up and he just ran with it, and he just drove. And there was 2 or 3 times where I think it was it Martinez that he just absolutely flew past, left him for dead, and he's in on goal. And he made the right decisions as well yesterday. He plays one wide to Sarabia. Sarabia, the shot's not bad, but he gets a little nick which takes it wide, and he plays a little 1-2 on the right hand side, gets himself into a scoring position. 5 flashes it just wide of the target, but again he's done well with that one. His movement was excellent, and I think there's 2 or 3 times. I remember one in particular, picked the ball up right on the edge of our own penalty area, and he just went, and he just drove, and he just kept on going. And what we did yesterday that we haven't done in previous games is we committed players with him. So we're sending players up the pitch, we're giving him options, we're dragging defenders into uncomfortable positions. And we kind of lost, with Adama, we lost a little bit of fun because he was fun to watch. But Cunha kind of brought that back yesterday, because he had that, I'm just going to have a go mentality about him. I'm going to run at you, and then let's see what your £60 million Mason Mount can do, and let's see what your Bruno Fernandes can do. And they had a really, really uncomfortable evening, and that was mainly because of the legs that we drove through midfield. So he should have scored. There's no excuse for the one he missed. It's an absolute sitter. But I think when you look at the all-round performance, he was the best player on the pitch. I think for either side, it was absolutely phenomenal. He's never going to be a big goal scorer. I think I struggle to see him ever breaking 10 goals a season at Wolves. But he's a player who can get you several goals for the course of a season. He can be involved in 15, 20 goals a season, because he's got that determination, and he really enjoys playing football, and he feels like he really likes being here as well. So really pleased with him yesterday.
I mean, apparently he had a knock in the week and he only just recovered for the game. So, I mean, what happens when he's fully fit, I've no idea. But it was nothing short of a sensational performance from Matheus Cunha, and hopefully there is more to come. I'm not going to go into the subs because I don't know that long enough time for that now. Now we're going to move on to a bit that might cause a bit of upset, and there's going to be lots of opinions come out. So we're going to move on to the VAR decision and the opportunity that was taken away from Wolves to get a point from the game. Now, I believe the conversion rate is around 85% for penalties taken in the Premier League. So if Wolves have had that penalty, they had an 85% chance of a point, which they were denied. And just in case anyone says anything horrendous, the pundits' views may not reflect those of who run the Wolves Report podcast. So breaking news today, the referees who officiated last night's game, Man United and Wolves, have been dropped for this weekend. Referee Simon Hooper, along with VAR officials Michael Salisbury and Richard West, have not been selected for this week's games. And that's on top of the head of the referees once again apologising to Wolverhampton Wanderers for what was a clear and obvious error by the officials. Nocky, Tyler, I spoke to you both last night. I spoke to you today, Mark, about this. I don't mind who starts me off, but it's simply not good enough. How many sorries are going to tally up until something changes? Start you off, Nocky.
I've got to be honest, they can stick their sorries up the backside as far as I'm concerned, because it means absolutely nothing. I don't like using the word corruption, but it feels like corruption to me, what's going on at the moment. And when you look at it, take the penalty out of it. You know, Ait-Nouri gets booked because he doesn't throw the ball in quick enough. Injury time, Onana holds the ball. Me and Tyler were sad enough that we counted it. He had it 12 seconds. Nothing happens. They score the goal, jump into the crowd. No booking. Nothing at all. The whole thing is set up to benefit the big clubs. And I've actually made a bit of a list because I was so angry today and I couldn't sleep last night on the back of this. Look at it in context. So you've got Man City, 100 charges they've got on them at the moment for breaking FFP over a 9-year period. They won a treble last year on the back of that corruption. What's been done about it? Absolutely nothing. What will happen after their 2-year investigation, which apparently they need to do? There'll be a slap on the wrist, a small fine, and get back to business. Chelsea, today's spending has taken them to 906 million in 3 windows. How are they financially able to support that kind of spending? They're finding loopholes, and then the FA are closing them after they've already done the damage. You look at the Saudi takeover now. What's going on in Saudi? Look at the Super League. It feels to me like they're desperate to keep our elite clubs elite because the brand's under a little bit of risk, and they'll do that by any means necessary. And then you see pictures after the game of Howard Webb, Martin Atkinson, John Moss, all in the corporate seats in Man United. You know, it stinks. The whole thing stinks. And you look at the penalty incident. Why would you not send the referee over to the monitor to have a look at that? No one has given me one articulated reason as to why you would not send him across. You send him across. If he says to the referee, go and have a look at it, I'm not 100%. If the ref goes over there, he has a look and he thinks, you know what, I'm going to stand by my decision, I'd accept that because he's gone and he's checked it. For them to not send him over, it's because they know the result. If they do send him over, they know he's going to have to give a penalty. And I'm sorry, the whole thing for me just feels like a corrupt system and a corrupt organisation, which is absolutely desperate to keep the elite.
I mean, great chat, Nocky. It had parallels to the penalty at Newcastle for me last year when they didn't send him to the monitor because they knew what would happen, Tyler. I know we spoke after the game last night, and I know you guys were absolutely raging. That would have been a good podcast, but maybe would have been banned after 5 minutes. But how is this happening, Tyler? Again, it happens to all clubs, but it feels more a consistent irregularity with games involving Wolverhampton Wanderers.
I genuinely haven't got the energy to talk about it anymore because what's the point? There's no point. I've tried to defend it as incompetence, as in to say they don't know what they're doing, but the more it happens, how is it still? It's the first game of the season. How is it still happening? How are we getting our third, fourth apology from Howard Webb in 6 months? You know, that can't be coincidence, can it? No other team's getting that many apologies. No other team's having that treatment. John Moss has told them straight after the game that's an error. Well, where's the consistency? Surely they're doing the same training. They're going through the same process as referees to figure out what may or may not need to be looked at. I'm getting to the point where I don't really care anymore. I mean, it's just ruining the game, isn't it? No consistency. How you can get a yellow card for holding the ball for 3 or 4 seconds, but Mason Mount and Aaron Wan-Bissaka can nearly break ankles with those challenges and get nothing. I can't explain it. I can't give you an answer. I mean, I'm not even talking about the penalty. That's just basic refereeing. And then for Gary O'Neill to get a yellow card when, to me, he's acted quite calmly actually with the circumstances that have happened. He hasn't.
Well, he's played just to get punched in the face.
To then give me a yellow card, it's almost like they're rubbing it in your face, aren't they? But I've got no words. Like genuinely, I'm lost for words at how it's either incompetence or corruption. It's either one of those two things. So make your own mind up.
Mark, I mean, obviously you're going to follow up to some tough chat there from the boys, and understandably the whole Wolverhampton Wanderers fan base, and I guess the players and the coaching staff are absolutely livid with what was an atrocious decision that was apologised for immediately afterwards. How does someone whose job it is to spot fouls and correct rights from wrongs in VAR, it's their job to do that, how do they see that differently from us four on there? Of course, we're probably all a bit Wolves biased, but I'm quite aware of what a punch in the face is. And if you tackle somebody on the pitch and you try and leg clatter someone, even if you've got the ball, it's a foul in modern football. So if a giant keeper comes out and wipes you out in the face, and after you've already won the ball, I am stunned, absolutely stunned. I mean, there's been a huge outcry on national media, across social media, that how bad it is and how ripped off Wolves were. I'm getting all excited myself now, Mark. But
do you want to take a minute?
I'm going to have to. Your take on it, Mark.
I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, you come into the season. I mean, we've had a tough enough, pre-season as it is. All we ask for is a level playing field, and all we ask for is, last season we had so much go against us with VAR. I mean, we all saw the league tables with or without VAR on Twitter, and everything went on like it was. I mean, it was laughable. And all that we ask for is like, okay, learn from your mistakes, go and have your conversations, go and see what they're doing in different countries, go and see what they're doing in the Women's World Cup. Why don't you make it more transparent? Why don't you mic yourselves up like you're doing in every other sport? Why are we so blooming draconian with our methods? Like, do you not want to do better? And again, like you guys, I refuse to believe that corruption is the answer, but it's coming to a point where you just can't rule it out for certain, and it's just like, how are we still having this conversation about VAR? It's supposed to be there to help the referees on the field, and I haven't seen anybody, all the journalists. I watched Dermot Gallagher on Ref Watch on Sky earlier. He was just like, irrefutable. It's a stonewall penalty. All of the pundits have said the same. All the other managers, everybody is saying, okay. So I don't understand why we're still having this conversation. I honestly despair with it. And people say, "Oh, will it even itself out over this season?" No, it doesn't.
Well, if it does, we'll finish third. So I don't think it will.
Yeah. Can we claim our back payments for the last couple of seasons? Then,
yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, and I've been a big advocate for VAR for a long time, and even now I'm at the end. I just want football back. To be honest, because it's
not VAR that's the problem. It's the clowns running it.
Yeah.
The video assistant, that bit works. They've got a replay. That bit works. They've obviously had a look at it because it took a few seconds. It's not the system. It's the people that are running the system that the problem.
But Tyler, I mean, I just don't understand how you could get that so wrong. How could anybody who works in football, who is even new to football, to understand that that's not a foul? It just
I've been with my missus 20 years. She hates football. She looks at that and she's like, "That's a foul." She hasn't got a clue about football, and she knows that's a foul. And it's like you said, they are doing this. They're full-time professional, extremely well paid. And what's their punishment? Having the weekend off with the family? Oh, sound, yeah, no problem. If you told me, like, I don't have to go to work this week, but I still get paid for it because I've been rubbish. I mean, how does that work as a punishment? I'm just totally done with it, to be honest. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's an absolute stinker. And it's what's even more painful is, I mean, Wolves have only got themselves to blame for not finishing the chances they created, and you shouldn't have to rely on refereeing decisions. However, Wolves were denied an opportunity to take a well-earned point at Old Trafford, which they would have. Even then, you're probably thinking, well, we could have won that game, but you're coming away with something that you've earned, and to have that opportunity taken away from you, it's so painful. And you could see it was hurting Gary O'Neill, and you could see the players were hurt because they played so well. Will it improve? I don't know. But like you said, Tyler, giving someone the weekend off that's had an absolute stinker. Well, how's that helping Wolves? Or Harrow Webb's got his own parking space at Compton now. Do you know what I mean? They know what he has for lunch. I'm sick of him visiting, and I'm sick of apologies. But there we go. Anyway, before we go off on a tangent, you are listening and watching episode 68 of the Wolves Report with club captain Mark Knock, director of football Chris Tyler, and former Chelsea and Fulham coach Mr. Mark Cole. Let's move on to some questions. Try and lighten the mood a little bit after we've all had a little rant then. It actually went a lot better than I thought it was going to. Richard Holmes asked, good evening, Richard. Encouraging as that was, spirit alone won't keep us up. Goals will, and does this squad have enough? Knocky.
I think with a performance like that, I think goals will come. I think if Fabio is still at the club at the end of the transfer window, I think he can hit double figures for us this season. It's just so hard to tell because we're all very excited about the performance yesterday, but I don't think you can get. I don't think it's a true barometer of what we're going to be like under Gary O'Neill. I think you're looking 6 or 7 games down the line before you know where we are. If we play Brighton and get absolutely slapped at the weekend, then we're back to square one, aren't we? So I think the squad this season is better than last season, and I do take Ruben Neves into account on that because as good as Ruben was, I think we were very limited when he played because everything went to Ruben. He's going to hit the wingers, he's going to look for that ball over the top, whereas now we're being almost forced into a different way of playing where we've got to be a little bit more creative. So I think we were desperate for strikers. We've got 2 new strikers essentially, so the squad is better. I think we'll score goals this season, but it's just whether we can just get that first win to get the ball rolling. What you don't want to do is get beat and then, you're going into another game and you haven't got a point, and then that confidence that we've worked can start eking away. So I think we'll be better. I think we'll score more goals, but we've got to get a win.
Absolutely. On that subject, thank you, Knocky. On that subject, I'll give you the XG one, Mark. I dare and do that to Tyler. He'd shut the laptop. Carsten comments, thank you for your contribution, Carsten. Comment for analysis, XG yesterday was higher than any league game last season except Leeds at home. So stats back up what we could see with our eyes. Something is different.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we kind of touched on it earlier on, about giving our best players the opportunity to express themselves properly. I mean, I think we'll all agree looking at J-Lo last season, or scratching our head at some of the decisions he made. And it felt like all of our good players were playing with shackles on. So the fact that we're utilising them properly and we're playing a system that gets them up the pitch quicker and into those positions where they can actually threaten the goal essentially is key. So I think it's Gary O'Neill's kind of tactics in training and what he's asking of the players is the difference.
Absolutely. And as much as I reluctantly say this, I think you have to give a little bit of credit to Lopetegui throughout the pre-season because even though he was leaving, that Stade Rennais was a really good performance. So some of his work has gone into that, even though, whatever, mate, I don't care. He's gone. Not bitter at all. Tyler, Sean Smith says the pre-season condition of this squad compared to that of Large's 12 months ago is stark. Credit where it's due. Hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think I was fitter than half the squad that started last season, to be fair. And maybe even Knocker was, to be honest. But
it's not go that far.
There have been a few rumours, actually, that O'Neill's not convinced the squad of where they need to be now. He was surprised that they're not as fit as maybe they could have been. And we noticeably tired last night, but I'd fully expect that, to be honest, after the amount of graft and effort they put in. The one thing, like I said, if you've never seen football before and you watch that game, we looked quicker, we looked sharper, we looked more aggressive. No doubt about that. So I think, with him and Derry there, they won't take prisoners. They'll want that team fit and sharp as a minimum. Like Mark said, what he got out of that Bournemouth team was remarkable ultimately because they were the worst team I've ever seen at Molineux in this league. And he got them, if nothing else, organised, fit, sharp and ready. So, I mean, he hasn't had the pre-season, has he, ultimately? So he's going to work with what he's got. But I expect us to be an athletic and fit team.
And with, as well, I think Mark touched it on earlier on, you can only play a style of football with the players that you've got. I'm sure every manager wants to play sexy football, but if you don't have the tools in the box to do it, then you've got to find a system that worked. And what he did at Bournemouth last year, only finishing a place or two below Wolves, was fantastic. Sean, thank you for your question. Greg goes in. Good evening, Greg. Do you think the club should go back in the loan or free transfer market? A couple of additions would help no end, especially seeing last night's performance. Nocky?
I think we should, but I don't think we will. I think there's areas we could strengthen. It's really tough, isn't it? I mean, I'd love to see us go in for someone like a Nonto with a loan and an obligation to buy, because those kind of deals are doable for us. I do think there's areas we could strengthen. I still think we need another centre half, because if we lose Dawson or Kilman, we're relying on Totti, and I think that becomes a bit of a risk for us at that point. Midfield, I'm relatively comfortable, but I think in the wide attacking areas, again, we know Neto picks up a few injuries. We know Kalajic picks up injuries. So you're kind of down to the bare bones if it goes pear-shaped. So maybe another player there. But my head tells me we won't do any more business in terms of incomings. I'd be very surprised if we do.
I think if, just finishing off on that, I think Wolves could still sell Ait-Nouri. I think they could sell Podence. I think they could sell Johnny, and I think they could sell Silva. I think those are the 4 players that could potentially leave this window. And if those 4 go, I don't think we can't not get players in, even if it's on loan. I don't think you can take those 4 away and then not happen. But
yeah, I do think Silva will go. And if that was to happen, I could see us bringing in Antonio. That's the only move I could see happening. But I don't know. Does that strengthen us? My feeling is no. But I do think with Lopetegui going, there is repercussions for that. I think there's ramifications that other players will want to follow him out the door, and I do think Silva's going to be one of them.
Thank you, Nocky. Mark Harvey asked this for you, Mark. From a coaching background, it's a good question. We all know it should have been a penalty last night. How do you think the players are feeling with VAR screwing us over a game like last night? Will it affect the confidence?
No, I don't think it'll affect the confidence. It's an annoyance for sure, and we'll talk about it ad nauseum throughout the season, because it won't be the last time for certain. But I think they'll be more encouraged by the fact that they went to Old Trafford and played the home team off the park. So I think they'll take a lot of spirit from that. So I think we'll be okay.
Good stuff. Thank you for your question, Mark, and thank you for your response, Mark. I'm going to take the last question before we move on to the game against Brighton. Canada Mike, fans were unbelievable last night, and after an off season of crap and going away, you don't expect to win. Question: are our travelling support the best in the league? I'd say the Wolves travelling support was the best in the league under the Nuno years. I remember going away from home and out singing everybody. Obviously, with quiet negative football, it's harder. But Wolves have always had a good away following, and they've always made a lot of noise, even when it's been poor. But I'd say away from home last night was as good as it got for a while, because something that happened we didn't really expect. But I think Wolves always travel away from home. I'd say peak from supporting Wolves in the recent years. The European games, obviously a little bit different. The championship season under Nuno, that first, I was there with Mark for the Derby game when Wolves won 2-0 and they're sensational. But are Wolves the best travelling away support? Oh, it's my club. Of course, I'm going to say yes, but I think we can always do better. Canada Mike, thank you for your question. You are currently listening and watching episode 68 of the Wolves Report. Club captain Mark Knock, director of football Chris Tyler, and former Chelsea and Fulham man Mark Cole. We've got a really tough game on Saturday. I think there will be a bigger test, certainly a more technical test of playing a team that knows how to play football. They want to draw you in. They want to counter on you. Tyler, I think for me, this is a harder game than Man United.
I fancy us for some reason.
Get in there.
I fancied us last night, and I'm not just saying that. I said to you, Mark, I said I fancy us to put on a performance and win, and we should have done. And
don't remember you saying that.
Yeah,
I've done him.
Let's go to the Carling Premier. I'm in Premier. I might be totally wrong here, but I think Brighton are weaker than last season. I want to see Pedro Neto running at James Milner in that position. I think we win the midfield battle. I don't think their centre midfielders, Casado and McAllister, are no longer there. I'm fully expecting us to put on another decent performance, and I want to win the game. I don't see any reason why we can't. If we keep the levels we kept up then it's a big ask because we've got less recovery time. I think we win the game. Play like we did Monday night, we win the game.
Nice and positive. I was not expecting that. Nocky?
I think they're a very, very good team. They play some wonderful football, but they've lost McAllister and they've lost Casado, and that's going to affect any team. So we have to be positive. You've got to believe you can get something out of the game. I'd love for us to win it, but I would take a point because I just think it's a foothold in the season. It starts you off, and 2 good performances and a point out of those 2 games, I don't think is a terrible return. But they'll cause us trouble. They've got some very good players. Mitoma in particular, he's more than capable of hurting you. He caused us all kinds of problems when he really tore Nelson apart last season. So they've got risks all over the pitch, but we're better than we were last season, and we definitely owe them one after the 6-0 drubbing we took down there. So hopefully we carry that kind of pain and frustration with us, and we carry the penalty incident with us as well, and get into them early, get the first goal, and then anything can happen.
Mark, Brighton are a team that if you've got football on the telly and they're on, you'll watch them because they're fun to watch. But they're not only fun to watch, they're very good as well. So I think there'll be a lot more movement than Man United, who I thought were quite static in midfield. I'd expect Brighton to try and draw us in and counter on us. But with the players that we have in midfield, we are way more equipped for them this year than we were last year.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely a better team than we were last year, for sure. Like we've said before, we spoke about this ad nauseum. We're much more mobile. We've got, over half the team are good ball carriers. You know, you've got Aït-Nouri, Nunez, Neto, Cunha, etc. So we will cause them problems for sure. I just wonder, it's a different type of game in the sense that, the pressure being at home, I think we'll be expected to get something, not whether it's a win or a point, we'll be expected to get something after that performance at Man United. Whereas Man United kind of went there. It was a bit of a free hit because nobody knew how we were going to play. So it all depends on how we kind of respond to that pressure. So, if we can perform like we did at Old Trafford, I think there's every chance, we can get a result there. But I honestly, I don't know. It could go either way for me.
I mean, Wolves put a lot into last night, and hopefully they've taken a lot of confidence of taking a team that was looking to be flirting with the Champions League, or expecting Champions League football, and Wolves have gone there and been the better team, other than the scoreline. So with the recovery time, I'll be expecting changes. I would expect a very similar team. I mean, it's still a decent gap, isn't it? We've got a few days off, but I think the only question here, but will it be a game that suits him more? Sarabia, Tyler, is that someone that you think is going to have more of an opportunity against a team like Brighton, or do we want the raw pace in the side?
I think it would, but I'm playing Cunha and Fabio all day long. And it's not even a debate for me. I don't know why you wouldn't. And then you can have one of Neto, Sarabia with them ultimately. Milner's at right back for them. So I know he's a good footballer, but you've got to see that as a target area with Aït-Nouri and Neto on that side, and giving Nunez a bit of a free role. So for me, the only change I'd make would be Fabio for Sarabia.
Yeah,
I think that's the obvious change. And
he had 3 shots on target, didn't he, against when he's short camera against Man United. So, and he's in the box, so we need to score.
He's in the box. His first instinct is to shot on target. Yeah. And we haven't got that in the team. We can talk about the fact we might score, we might not. We haven't got that instinct. He's the only player we've got that has it. And if it falls in the box, you want it to fall to him ultimately.
Yeah, decent loan. Did what he had to do last year. I think he had 20 or so goal involvements, including assists and goals last season. Definitely a fox in the box. Little time on the pitch, but he just turned up in the right place and was having snapshots. Because the formation was so fluid and everyone was appearing everywhere, I don't think I think you could play, even if it is like a 4-3-3 or a diamond, because Neto can play left or right. I think it would work, and I would like to see it. I'm not convinced that he's going to start Fabio. After how good Fabio was in those pre-season games, I think if you thought he was that, he would have started at Man United and not Sarabia. I'm happy to be wrong, but I think it would be very, very similar again. We're almost at the end of the show. Let's go around and get the predictions for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Brighton and Hove Albion. Nocky.
1-1. Mitoma with the opener.
Oh, you stinker. One for the dream team, though. Tyler.
3-1 Wolves.
Mark.
Desmond. 2-2.
2-2. I've always got about Wolves. All them chances. Let's go for a 2-0 Wolves. And I'm saying in the whole season last year, Matthias Cunha, and he didn't score once when I predicted him. I didn't say it, and then he scored. Thank you to Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and Mark Cole. This has been episode 68 of the Wolves Report. Look forward to you joining again next week of the Wolves.